I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've told my story at Al-Anon meetings and AA meetings, but I could not go into any depth about the faith that I have come to find through a relationship with Jesus Christ. So I'm really happy to do this. When we were away at men's camp, they changed the format. Instead of doing sermons, they had men stand up and give their testimony. And I'm always amazed for somebody who has gone through hell and back and comes out the other end a much better person and full of love and full of God's grace. I always wanted to do this. Lisa beat me to it, and so did Diane, but that's okay. So now, here I am. Okay, I grew up in a family. There was 7 children, and we lived in a hard working class area of Montreal called Park Extension. And I always felt my family was different because my father was a mean, dysfunctional, alcoholic drunk. Living with him was like living with somebody who was insane. He was nice to everybody outside the home. He could charm the birds out of the trees. When he came home to us, he was mean. He had a look on his face that would scare Satan. And I don't know why that was. I did not see what my brothers and sisters did to deserve this treatment. And even now, today, when I look back, the only reason he treated us like that was because we were home. He'd invited friends over. I've seen projectile vomiting. I've seen him treat us all and my mother really bad. And he was difficult to live with. I developed a sense that when I heard my father coming home, just the way he turned the door handle, I can tell whether he was drunk or not, which gave me precious little time to make myself scarce. He also, he verbally and emotionally abused us. There was no physical abuse and there was no sexual abuse. Well, he had this habit. He was a bit of an exhibitionist. And when he came home, he would empty his pockets on the bureau, and then he would start to get comfortable, and he would start to undress. He liked to walk around in his boxer shorts. He didn't care who was in the house. If you had a friend in the house, he did it. And when my mother tried to explain this to him, he said, "This is my GD house, and if you sons of bitches don't like it, you can leave." I always liked when he used that term, sons of bitches. Not only did he degrade us, he degraded our mother at the same time with that phrase. He insisted when there was mail to be mailed that he would walk in his underwear down to the mailbox and back again. It was very embarrassing. My mother insisted that I go to church. I went to Sunday school. And it's funny, he mentioned that hymn. That was the first hymn I ever learned to sing. And I was in Sunday school. So it's amazing how things come. And but I stayed until I was old enough, and then I had no reason for church. I couldn't understand when they tried to explain to me that Jesus died for my sins. I wasn't even born. What do you mean he died for my sins? How could he die for my sins? I wasn't even born. I had no concept, but it planted a seed, which I'm going to talk about later. Anyways, for some reason, my mother confided in me a lot, and my mother tried her best, and she was a house clean nut. She washed every floor, dusted every stick of furniture, vacuumed every rug, cleaned every surface that was in the house every day. That was just to keep her mind off what was going on. She also started going to the Montreal General Hospital, and at that time, there was really no counseling or anything, so the doctors decided that they were going to give her nerve pills to calm her down. Okay, and she took a lot of nerve pills, and basically, she became a pill-popping junkie. That was the only way that she could cope. And Christmas time was really well. You see, my father worked. He was a meat buyer for a chain of grocery stores, and he would go to packing houses, and for them to make sales, they would bring out the bottle. And of course, at Christmas time, it got worse. And my mother would sit at the window and watch to see when my father would come home. And when he did come home, she would swear and stomp off to bed. Crazy, isn't it? It's really, living with an alcoholic is like there's a big dirty elephant sitting on the sofa, and everybody walks around and pretends that it's not there. And you know how to play this game. You know how to play it well. My father, we had a German Shepherd. I used to go up with my father on the mountain to walk this dog. And my mother said, I want you to go with him because if he gets too drunk, I know you can handle it to drive the car home. I was 12 years old. And of course, he would invite some of his cronies up there, and they would start to drink. Anyways, one of them even joined AA, and he came with his wife one time to meet my father to walk the dogs, and he brought out the bottle, and his wife said, you now remember, they told you at AA you're not supposed to drink. And my father said, well, one little drink, that's not going to hurt anybody. Why are you picking on him? And I remember the look on this woman's face. She had an emotional meltdown. He had a son, this guy that came, he had a son who died in a bicycle accident outside their home. Anyways, and he would go to my father for sympathy after the walk. He would sit in his car, and they would drink, and I guess he had some sort of comfort through it all. I don't know. Anyways, I would stay in the other guy's car with his young daughter. We didn't know how to handle it. And after a while, we became familiar with each other. We started to fondle each other because we had it was just so good once in a while to feel good. Just to feel good about something. She confessed to me that her older brother was abusing her. I have no idea what I could do with that information. I was 12 years old. If my father would have found out, he would have blew into a rage. So I just kept it to myself. I think about it to this day. I hope this girl is doing well. I hope she's doing well. Anyways, when I went to school, I had a very bad stuttering problem. I couldn't say a sentence without stuttering because I was so self-conscious and felt so unappreciated. I felt so low. And I had a real bad stuttering problem. And they sent me to a special class where I would read out of a book, and this was supposed to help me do it. There was a guidance counselor there, but she missed it all. If I was in school and the teacher asked me to come up in front and to explain something, I would have an emotional meltdown. I couldn't do it. Anyways, I don't know if counseling would have done any good because I'm going to tell you something about children that come from dysfunctional homes. Wild horses cannot drag it out of them. They will not betray their family no matter how dysfunctional it is. So I went through elementary school, high school with this really bad stuttering problem, and it was bad. I got picked on, I got bullied, I got made fun of, I was mocked, and no really help at home. I remember one time my older brother got married. He married an Italian girl. They came from a large family. And it was a big wedding. and there was a lot to eat, and they supplied the wine. My father brought 2 or 3 bottles of whiskey. That was his favorite poison. And he sat with his friends at a table, and they proceeded to get loaded. Driving home, my brothers figured that my brother, my younger brother and me should go with them, and my mother decided to drive home with my father. I don't know why they didn't. My brothers didn't ask my father to drive because he would have blew into a rage. You didn't tell him or ask him anything. So anyways, on the way home, my father hit a parked car, and my mother went forward and hurt her head. And she went to the hospital, and she had a minor concussion. And my father didn't mention it at all. The police came, he lit a cigar, he smoked cigars, he started chewing Chiclets spearmint gum like it was going out of style. And he talked his way out of it. But my father ignored my mother after that. And then my mother, one day, she really got angry. And she took out an axe, and she chased him around the house. And she was going to sink that axe right into his skull if he did not empty all his booze bottles into the sink. And I remember standing there watching my father emptying these bottles into the sink, and it was like he was pouring his soul out. And it wasn't fun. I remember one time my father came home drunk. I was sitting down in the TV room with my arm around my girlfriend, just sitting there watching TV and everything. And my brother was upstairs, and they got into a vicious fight. But that was normal. That was normal for us. A vicious, all-out verbal fight. And my brother came downstairs, and he had a handful of my mother's pills. My mother never threw out anything. She had all these extra pills left over, and she kept them. I don't know why. And she ran to the bathroom, from what I heard, and grabbed a handful of pills, and she was going to take it all and kill herself. And my brother grabbed it out of her hand, and he came down in the TV room, and I was sitting there watching TV, and everything. And my brother, he was jumping up and down and saying, my mother's going to she's going to kill herself, and the pills were falling all over the place, and he was stomping them on the ground. When I look back at it, he looked like a pill-popping junkie going off the deep end. This is what happens in a dysfunctional home. So, I start to grow up, and I get a job, and I buy myself a motorcycle. And I'm not spending a lot of time at home. But I'm not going to become an alcoholic like my father. I could think. I thought I was thinking good. So I had a motorcycle. All I was interested in partying. And I remember the first time I got stoned on pot, I knew I liked it. I liked it. That was my drug of choice. I smoked pot, I smoked hashish, I smoked hash oil, I did some cocaine. I didn't like that. It was too expensive. The buzz wasn't good enough for the cost. I dropped acid. I did all these things, and I didn't care. I was on my motorcycle. I had a couple of grams of hash in my pocket, a pack of cigarettes and rolling papers, and I thought I was free. I was free. So I started to meet girls. Birds of a feather flocked together. When I went to a dance, I met the second sickest person in the room. I was the sickest. You see, when you come from dysfunctional homes, whatever the dysfunction is, you speak the same language, you have the same body language, you're naturally gravitated to it. So I met this girl, and her father was an alcoholic, and they came from alcoholism. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible disease. It robs you of a life, it robs you, it rots your soul, it steals you of any joy in life. You will give up family, friends, jobs, everything to feed your addiction. So we met and we got married. And it didn't last because we tore each other apart. We were young. The marriage was based on lust. That's all we cared about. Getting high and partying. That's all it was based on. Didn't last too long. And she left me for somebody else. Of course, boo-hoo-hoo, I felt sorry for myself. You know, I'm a victim here. The family I grew up in, I'm a victim. I can't help my situation. I'm a victim. Love being a victim. So I quickly ran around and found somebody else who was just as crazy as me again. We had a daughter, Sarah. She was a blessing in my life. She was the thing that started me to grow up. Because, and anyways, I was working at the time. I was working at the Montreal Star and later the Gazette. I was a printer. I made good money. And I had worked all the overtime I could, and I came home and I just spent all the money on the family and everything else. See, because I was a people pleaser. I wanted people to like me. I didn't spend much time with my family. Anyways, when we finally lost our jobs, Sarah's mother left, went to live with somebody else. Sarah was confused, and then she decided she was going to live with me. I don't know why, because I was nuts. Didn't see it at the time. It was all everybody else's fault. If everybody would do the way I thought, this would be a real good world to live in. So anyway, she was living with me. I didn't have a job. We were losing this big house we built. I had to put it up for sale. Anyways, I started going to a gym in Huntington, and we did boxercise. That was to exercise, and you learned all the different ways. We didn't spar or anything. It was just for exercise and fun. Anyways, I was there, and the person who ran the gym, he said to me one time, he says, you know, David, he says, you're a really nice guy. You're one of the nicest guys I ever met. But there's just one problem. I said, what's that? He says, you're crazier than an outhouse rat. And of course, he was a boxer, and there was no way I was going to challenge him on that. And he said, I'll tell you what, I go to AA meetings, my girlfriend goes to Al-Anon meetings. How would you like to come one time? And you can go to an Al-Anon meeting because you grew up in the same type of house that I did. Because I would tell anybody anywhere who would listen how bad I had it. So I said, no, Al-Anon is just for people who are married to alcoholics. He says, no, it isn't. And he said, you should try it. And I said, no. So anyways, one day he threw me some gloves. He says, let's spar. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Just see how much you can hit me. So we were sparring away, you know, like this and that and dancing around. And he said to me, looks at me, he says, I know why you don't want to go to an Al-Anon meeting. And I said, oh, why, Mr. Know-It-All? He said, because you're afraid of the opposite sex. You're afraid to talk to women. And then he would jab me in the stomach and he'd back off and I'd run at him and I couldn't lay a glove on him. So there we are, we're going to an Al-Anon meeting in his car, and I'm sitting in the back seat wishing I was anywhere else but there. I would have preferred to be sticking needles in my eyeballs than going to an Al-Anon meeting. So I walk in, and there's only one other man in the meeting, and it's all women. And of course, you're the newcomer on the block, so they're all making eye contact with you, you know, all these women. And I was lonely. I was single. I was raising a daughter. I mean, life couldn't have not got any worse for me. And anyways, I was there and I was saying, well, and the first time someone's not making eye contact with me, I'm running out that door. And I said, well, I'm going to have to explain it to this guy. Well, I didn't stay at the meeting, so I'll stay. Anyways, I stayed for the meeting, and it was my turn to speak. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I said, I don't think this meeting's for me. My father was an alcoholic. I grew up in an alcoholic home, but this meeting's not for me. Oh, yes, it's for you. Yes, it's for friends and families of alcoholics, adult children. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Had no intention of coming back. After the meeting, I was introduced to something that Al-Anon has given the world. It's called the Al-Anon hug. You don't leave a meeting without everybody hugging you, okay? And these people in Al-Anon, they don't give you these little wimpy hugs on the back. I mean, they just squeeze the breath right out of you. And it felt good. It just felt good that somebody cared. It just felt good. And by the way, my wife Cheryl was at that first meeting. So I began to learn the things in Al-Anon. I learned the difference between helping and enabling. Helping somebody is actually helping them do something. Enabling somebody is taking the consequences of their choices away from them, and when you do that, you're actually hurting them because they don't learn. I was doing that all. I was a people pleaser. I was an enabler. And I also had something going for me at the time. I was angry all the time. I was seething with anger all the time. You did not want to get in front of me and say something to me that I didn't like. I could destroy you with my tongue. I was angry all the time. If I was driving into Valleyfield and the bridge was up and I had to wait for a boat to go through, by the time I got across the bridge, I could have murdered, burned, plundered, pillaged that whole area single-handedly. I was so angry. So I went and I finally learned the first 3 steps. We admitted we're powerless over alcohol and their lives have become unmanageable. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Basically, that means I can't, He can, and I'm going to let Him. You have to give up your will. I started giving up my will, not all at once, just little bits and pieces, because dysfunctional behavior, even though it doesn't work, it's like an old tool in your hand. They used to have this drill that was, you plugged into the wall, but you couldn't take it anywhere. But it felt good in my hand. I knew how to use this. When I first got a cordless drill, it was powerful. It nearly came out of my hand. It was awkward, but it was a better tool. And this is what I had to do in Al-Anon. I had to unlearn all this dysfunctional behavior. Now I want to say, in Al-Anon or any 12-step program, you never hear the word sin, okay? Dysfunction, that's sin. They don't mention it. They use the word dysfunction. So I got the concept of a higher power. Cheryl and I had the same sponsor. This is someone that we talked to. And anyways, I was always... I came to her one time and I said, you know, this person in the meeting, I know they don't like me, and this one looks at me funny and everything. Of course, she never took my side. And she said, you know, David, not everybody's going to like you. I was flabbergasted. What's not to like about me? And then I thought, well, of course, everybody's not going to like me. I don't like everybody, so we're equal. I also, Sarah's mother refused to pay any child support, and she was angry because Sarah was living with me, so she was going to make us suffer. So anyways, I had to go to court, and she's living in the United States in Cologne to request child support. And she said, I'm going to stall it, you're never going to get it, I'm going to do this and that. And I told my sponsor, and my sponsor said something to me that I'll never forget. She says, why don't you pray? I said, well, I don't really believe in God. And she said, that's okay, David, because He believes in you. So she said, pray. Just do it for me. I don't care if you don't believe it in your heart. Just do it and see what happens. So I did. And we went to court, and Sarah's mother stated the case. He said, well, you didn't bring up any legal reason. I have to grant this custody that is being petitioned from Quebec, Canada. I didn't even have to say a word. It was all over in a matter of minutes. I walked out of there, thank you, God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Different things that happened. Somebody gave me something, and this was written by a guy. He was a preacher who went around Toronto when AA first came to Toronto to talk about that higher power business. And he basically stated, I can't believe that nothing created something that's going nowhere for no reason. And I thought about that. There was never a time there was nothing. If there was ever a time there was nothing, that would have continued, because nothing cannot create something. This something is God. I came to realize that. Anyways, Cheryl and I got married, and she came to live with me. Why she married me, I don't know. I remember before we got married, I was still smoking pot, and I lied to her. I said I wasn't. And she caught me. Well, she caught the little butts. And she said, you're going to have to choose between me or that. I don't want to change you. She had programmed, I accept you the way you are. I don't want to change you. But she grew up in an alcoholic home, married her alcoholic, and alcoholism just runs in families. It gallops in families. So I decided I'm going to give this up. I don't even know why I was doing it near the end. It wasn't doing anything for me anymore. So I gave it up. We got married and we were happy. I had the Al-Anon program. I learned the wonderful word, no. When somebody would ask me something, I would never say no. I would do it because I wanted to be liked. But when I first said no, I would give a whole big explanation of why I had to say no. Later on, as I got stronger, when I said no and somebody would question it, I would look at them and say, what is it you don't understand about the word no? Maybe I can help you with this concept. And if they would continue, I would say to them, I hope you're not suggesting that your life is more important than mine, are you? That would diffuse the situation, but a lot of people didn't like it. They did not like it. They kept trying to reel me back into this codependent, dysfunctional behavior. They did not like me saying no. And I'm telling you, some of them squealed like a stuck pig in a picket fence, and I did not care. What somebody else thinks about me is none of my business. None of my business. I don't worry about things like that anymore. So we bought a house. I wasn't even working at the time. I lost my job at the Gazette. We had a job guarantee, a wage guarantee. The company took us to court and destroyed it. They paid off the judge. They hired Michael Goldblum as their publisher. His father was Victor Goldblum of the Liberal Party, and it was done. Our jobs were done. We got a buyout, but I had to live on that. I was 55 years old. I couldn't figure out what else I wanted to do. I was a printer my whole life. So anyways, don't even have a job. I was working for this guy an artist who made lithographs in the Bahamas. We were living in his big house, paying cheap rent, and we were making the lithographs of paintings that he made of tourist places in the Bahamas. Anyways, that ended when Osama bin Laden and his boys took down the Twin Towers. So we decided we have to move, and Cheryl and we took our bicycles and we went around the road on the Watson Road, and there's this nice little cedar shingle house that was for sale. And I said, well, we'll have to call him up. We had no pencil. We came down the road and we met Pat. I borrowed a pencil off of Pat. And we talked a little bit and everything. And anyways, we went back, we called it. I said, no, I'm not going to get a mortgage. I prayed to God. I was praying to God. I believed in God at this point. But I didn't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. But I believed in God. So we went, we got it down, we put a bid. The guy accepted it. We went to the bank. The bank manager sat there. She checked my credit rating. She says, you always pay your bills on time. You're never even late. It's very rare to see a credit rating like that. Sure, we're going to give you a mortgage. And I didn't even have a job. I was being paid cash. I didn't have a job. So we got it. And we're living there. Anyways, Pat and John, they said, would you like to come to church? And
Never should ask that pencil. Never gave it back either.
So she said, we're going to have a speaker and it's going to be a potluck. It's going to be Roland and Linda. And I said, Roland, who? And she said, yeah. And he's a missionary in Vietnam. And I said, yeah, I want to go see Roland. I'm not going to say much about this, but Roland and I go way back in our party days. That's all I'm saying about that, because he's not here. So anyways, yeah, I want to go see him. So we go there, and I listen to Roland and Linda, and I could not believe the change in this man. And this is where God says to be a light to the world. People notice. Don't ever think people don't notice, and you might not even know. And I asked Roland, I said, what the heck happened to you? I says, you have this purpose for life. I should have been happy. I was in Al-Anon, I knew all the stuff to have a good life and everything else, but I still wasn't happy inside. I was missing something. I also looked at the people in the church, and you guys all had something that I wanted, but I didn't know what it was. And Roland said to me, he says, because I said, well, I'm in Al-Anon now, in the 12 steps and all of this, and I made my peace with God. And he says, that's good. He says, what about step 13? I said, there's no step 13. He says, I just made one up. He says, go get a relationship with Jesus Christ. Well, how do you do that? So anyways, he left. We didn't go back to church. And I heard that John and Pat were praying for us all the time. This helps. Prayer helps. It really helps. I see it work. So anyways, he comes back a second time. And we go and see him and everything else. And I told him, I said, you know, when you came back, I said, I couldn't believe the change in you. Anyways, I said to Cheryl, I want to start coming to this church. You know, well, you know, not everybody's perfect. Yeah, I know not everybody's perfect, but they all seem to, I don't know, they're content. They're happy. I'm running out of adjectives here. And so we started going, and the rest is history. I started going. Okay, and this is not a bad way to die, being asleep and waking up in heaven. I don't know anything easier. Anyways, obviously I survived it. And I came home, and I remember the Trout River was right behind our house. I went down the Trout River. There's a spot in the river where I sit, and the water's up to here. And I was looking around at this, and I just thank God. I thank God for every breath that I take. I thank Him for creation. I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And now I realize, okay, the home that I grew up in, it explains the way I was. It gives good reason for the way I was, but it doesn't excuse my behavior. My behavior are my choices. And why did I have to go through that? The best one I can come up with is Cheryl and I started an Al-Anon meeting in this church, and if everybody shows up, we have about 8 members. I've been doing this for 21 years. And if you know anybody that is suffering, that's living with an alcoholic, if you wish the drinking to stop, come and see us. You see, in the Al-Anon meeting, we don't tell anybody what to do. We let them feel their emotions and pain. We don't judge. We have boxes of Kleenex on the table, which get well used sometimes. And they figure out their own thing. It's a spiritual program. And the ones who do not get the concept of a God, of believing in God, they don't do very well, I found. They just flounder. So, I realize now why, part of the reason I grew up in an alcoholic home, because if I did go through all that I went through, I would not be the person I am today. I would not be doing running this Al-Anon meeting. Well, I don't run it, I facilitate it. We're all equal members in it. And what we try to do, and it was Mark who told me this, I don't want to lead anybody in front. I don't want to be behind pushing them. I want to walk beside them as a friend and share my experience, strength, and hope. This is what I wish to do. I didn't start off very well in life, but I want to finish well. I want to finish well. God does not care what I did and where I've been. God cares about what I'm doing and where I'm going. This is what he cares about. And he doesn't love me any more before than he does now. And you know, when I do these things, I don't even think about what I'm going to say. I just get up and I talk. And I know he's putting the words in my mouth. So, it's good. Life couldn't be better. I have a reason now to get up in the morning. I love creation. I just love it all. And as long as that I'm breathing, I guess God is not done with me yet. I have something to contribute. And I can't do this alone. I need all you guys. I need all you guys. Marilyn and I used to have some real, how should I put it, lively conversations going to the street ministry. I love it. I love it all. I don't argue anymore. I don't want to argue. I'm done arguing. You want to argue, go see somebody else. I'm done. I'm done with it. So, God has blessed me with Cheryl. It's hard to live with somebody who also is in the 12-step program and they know all the ins and outs of codependency and dysfunction, because you can't pull the wool over their eyes. You can't do it. And that's good. I don't want somebody that I can maneuver and control and manipulate. I want somebody as a partner, as my best friend. And I found that. God brought us together. I know all of this now. Finally, I'd like to read something. It's in Jeremiah 29, verse 11, and it's from the New Living Translation, so it'll sound a bit different. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you future and a hope. There is one thing God cannot do. He cannot lie. And he cannot stop loving you. Two things. Can't do it. He won't do it. And I'm just glad I feel his grace. I don't deserve this. For me up here, if you would have seen me before, and you would have told me that I would have been doing this, I would have asked you what drug you were on. Can you give me some? My life is a miracle. We're all miracles. I got to show up, but he does all the work. He did all the work. You know what it is? And we've learned this in Al-Anon too, to separate the disease from the person. Everybody is a decent human being, okay? You take their addiction or whatever it is, and you take it away from the person, you put it there, and the person is there. You look at the person without the disease, and it's very hard to do. And that's what Jesus Christ did for us on the cross. He separated our sin, our dysfunction, whatever word you want to give it, I don't care. He separated our sin as far as the east is from the west. This is how much he loves us. This is how much he loves us. Anyways, the reason I do this is I'm going to read one more step. Got to put my glasses on. You know, they're making print smaller nowadays, don't you notice that? Step 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact natures of our wrong. I believe that any crap that you have inside of you, if you let it stay there, it's going to fester and poison you. This is why talking is so good. I get a lot out of this. It really helps me. I'm glad I can do it. You know, and especially for someone who grew up and couldn't speak and they stuttered, God can do anything for you. He'll do it. He'll give you exactly what you need. Of course, sometimes I ask and it's not what I need, and you know, He's not going to give it to me. You know, God can say no too, and I'm okay with that. So I would like to close with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I thank you all for coming. May you all have a blessed week, and may God bless you in all that you do.